Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The word muscular has come into prolific use over the last decade in debates over successive Modi government's policies. Is it then a strong or a weak government today? Manipur is a good place to begin. If you are a Modi backer, you would call its handling of Manipur an act of strength. For its critics, it would represent its biggest failure. What if we suggested that the answer is neither of the two, and no, this isn't one of those convenient cop-outs that say there is some truth in either. There is no question of nothing like on the one hand this, on the other hand that. That is not the style of national interest. The answer is that Manipur represents the BJP's unique ideological approach to governing the Northeast by playing identity politics jiu-jitsu in the region. If the unique governance challenge of the northeastern states is small identity politics, we will fight it. The BJP's approach is the BJP will fight it with the might of the big identity. That's why we use the comparison of jiu-jitsu, where that's a Japanese martial art, where you use the strength and bulk of a rival to defeat them. For the BJP, this is a work in progress. It hasn't gone well so far. It is getting worse, in fact, but the party insists on continuing with it. In their view, the Congress blundered all these decades on identity politics in the Northeast, especially in the tribal states. It is something I've heard from multiple RSS leaders. Now, most of them are now very senior, because when I used to know them, that was more than 40 years ago when I was doing my tour of duty in the Northeast, as they were doing theirs for their organization. So I've heard this from them, this view of the Congress party's handling of the Northeast, and also from many leaders in the BJP and people in the government, or at least those few in the government who might still be willing to engage, at least on the sidelines of action. Briefly, it implies that the Congress never fought fire with fire in the Northeast. It let the tribal groups and Christian influences have too much agency and space of their own. It did use the sledgehammer of central power, the army included, to crush insurgencies, but politically there was naive accommodation. And that came from the Congress party's flawed understanding. Flawed is the BJP RSS view, flawed understanding of Indian nationalism. They were so committed to keeping Hinduism and the larger Hindu majority out of this expression of the national will that they left behind multiple festering wounds and sores, and thereby gifted India its imperiled northeastern frontiers. We could simplify it further as the Congress employing the small, localized identity politics to its own advantage, but only as vote banks, and left the future generations with these problems. Diversity in sensitive border areas is cute and exotic, but undermines the national interest as viewed from the Hindu heartland. I said Hindu, not Hindi. It will take time resolving such a chronic problem. Be also prepared, therefore, for some setbacks along the way. Count Manipur as one, but also see what we are doing there. And I'm putting this in quotes. Also see what we are doing there, fighting small identity, that is Kuki, Christian, Myanmaris, with larger identity, Methi, Hindu, Indian. Everybody knows whose side we, the center, are on. You wanted to play identity politics? Be my guest. Two can play that game. Then, of course, we also run into some complications. The latest being your own Chief Minister, Biren Singh, a Hindu, and now widely hailed in whispers within the BJP circles as Methi logon ke to wo Bhagwan hai. For the Methi, he's now their god. We saw him presenting a memorandum to the governor to demand control over the central forces, saying we should be in charge of the unified command. Remember, the central government had used its own powers under Article 355 of the Constitution to send its advisors and forces to the state. That is the article in the constitution that places the responsibility of protecting all territories in India and their peoples on the central government. So using that, central government sent central forces, also their advisors, police chief, etc. Now he wants control over them, and this is just after his son-in-law had sought their withdrawal from Manipur. I cannot find another instance. I've scratched my head. I've covered almost every major internal trouble in India over the past 40 years and read about whatever happened in the past. I cannot find another instance where the chief minister of the ruling party in New Delhi, in the central government, goes to the governor appointed by the same center and demands control over central forces and indirectly also their withdrawal. Read his lips. What's he saying? He's saying, you want to have us fight this out as Methi Hindus versus cookies? Leave it to us. We have the weapons, the numbers and the wherewithal. If only your central forces did not come in the way and establish those buffer zones, etc. We'll sort this out. Back to our question then. The question we raised in the very beginning, is this a strong government or a weak government? It must feel really strong if significant demands are rising within its own ecosystem to use Article 356 of the Constitution to dismiss Mamata Banerjee's government in West Bengal because of the ongoing angry but totally peaceful protests. Its governor in West Bengal is issuing threats on camera, reading off the teleprompter, primed to take over and reinstate the majesty of the Constitution. How does it then square with its own chief minister in a state about 5% of West Bengal size by population, going to the cowering governor in Imphal to advise him to hand over the central forces to him or indirectly to withdraw them? On Manipur, the BJP partisans' view is that the state is under assault from foreign infiltrated and armed from Myanmar, Christian Kuki tribals, and the government is doing a brilliant, if thankless job of protecting the beleaguered and mostly Hindu Methi majority. Never mind if it outnumbers the Kukis at least 3:1. You don't break this brilliant fight back by using Article 356 and dismissing Chief Minister Biren Singh, who's leading this. If you are a critic, on the other hand, you would say it's an abject failure. The state has lapsed into armed anarchy. Okay, it was a different era technologically, but never in Kashmir, Punjab, in full-fledged insurgencies in Nagaland and Mizoram, or in the east central Maoist zones now. Have we ever seen 10-kilometer range rockets and drone-launched bombs being used? The answer you would hear is, look across the border. That is where the threat is coming from. That border is across the border to Myanmar. That is where the threat is coming from. See how broken Myanmar is. But the fact is, Myanmar has always been broken, especially in its vast, forested, sparsely populated northern zones bordering India. There have always been many insurgent groups. Many Indian insurgent groups have also found refuge there. And successive Indian governments and Indian intelligence agencies and Indian army, they have all played fast and loose with insurgent groups there and have also coordinated with the Myanmarese army, or what used to be Burmese army. Today, however, the Myanmarese army is losing control at a dramatic pace. It can't be anybody's case that India sent its own army across to restore order. We've got work to do, but on our side of the border. Since the BJP's approach to the Northeast has been driven by the engine of Hinduized identity and fueled by its ideological nationalism, it can't admit it isn't working. The approach has meanwhile lit up some new fires, reopened old wounds like Manipur, and let others fester. The first Modi government made a spectacular beginning, a brilliant beginning in the Northeast by signing the framework agreement for a final settlement with the Naga rebels, that is National Socialist Council of Nagaland, IM, which is the Isaac Moiva group. PM Modi hailed it as historic at a televised event at his residence, Naga leaders in attendance. In its 10th year now, there has been no movement on that framework agreement. The first center interlocutor, former Intelligence Bureau Special Director R.N. Ravi, moved upwards to Raj Bhavan, now in Chennai, after NSCN accused him in 2020 of quote-unquote manipulating the framework agreement. His successor, A.K. Mishra, also a former IB Special Director, is now bogged down. And just this Thursday, at a large meeting that Nagaland government held, including civil society, tribal and church leaders, a demand was made that the dialogue be elevated to ministerial or political level. The NSCN also spoke out in tandem, saying, and I'm quoting from them, delay will do more harm than good. If Nagaland has made zero progress in 9 years or more than 9 years and slipped back more than a bit, new sparks are coming up in unexpected areas, mostly in response to NRC/CAA. The Khasi Students Union in Meghalaya has just doubled down on its anti-outsider movement. Last month, the Meghalaya Assembly passed the Meghalaya Identification, Registration, Safety and Security of Migrant Workers Amendment Bill 2024. Inspectors will now have greater powers to identify, register and mark out workers from outside. Even in Mizoram, quiet since the peace accord in 1986 and among the most peaceful and lawful zones in all of India, identity issues are rising again. And these are trans-border too. Chief Minister Laldu Homa has just made a pitch for Zo Unity. Zo, by the way, is a generic name for the group of tribes that constitute the Mizos. With this, he is reviving the demand for Greater Mizoram. Assam has just seen bloody clashes as the BJP fights identity, which is Bengali Muslim, with identity, Hindus. The post-2014 BJP has made an ideological and philosophical shift in the centre's approach to the region. The outcome so far looks bad in most northeastern states. Manipur is only the starkest example. For the BJP overall, it's a work in progress. It is ideological, philosophical, and of course, political.